What happens inside your skull at minute 1 versus minute 24 of the Pomodoro cycle? Well, the Pomodoro technique, it's not just a productivity hack. Most productivity gurus tell you to just focus for 25 minutes. Even I've done this on some of my episodes, but they don't explain why. And here's what they're missing. Your brain isn't a machine that you can just turn on or off. It is literally a biological system with predictable patterns, and those patterns are about to change everything you think you know about focus. In the next 20 or so minutes, I'm going to walk you through the complete cognitive life cycle of a single Pomodoro session, from the initial spike of goal-directed dopamine when you set that timer to the synaptic fatigue that kicks in at about minute 15 to the default mode network activation during your 5-minute break that actually makes you more creative. This, my friends, is not productivity porn. This is neuroscience. And once you understand what's happening neuron by neuron, synapses by synapses, you'll never look at your kitchen timer the same way ever again.
Your Success DNA podcast. Your success is in your DNA.
What is up? What is up? What the hell is up, my success seekers? Welcome back to another episode of Your Success DNA, is a podcast for all my aspiring entrepreneurs and escapees. Everybody out there really wants to feel a little better and think a little better. And we do that by delivering mindset shifts and habit upgrades, all mixed with a little dose of rebellion, helping you break free from convention so that you can build a life aligned with your version of success. You know someone that dreams of ditching the grind, but still seems to make a little bit of time for some personal development, a little self-help out there. Go ahead and forward this episode to them. So as I kind of alluded to in the intro, I want to make this episode the definitive guide to your brain on the Pomodoro technique. What really happens in your neurons inside your head during those 25-minute work sessions. So in today's episode, there's 3 things I want you to come away with. And they are: first, we're diving deep into the neuroscience of why a simple kitchen timer can hijack your brain's attention systems more effectively than willpower ever could, and why Francisco Cirillo accidentally reversed engineered your prefrontal cortex's natural ultradian rhythm when he invented the Pomodoro technique. Second, I'm taking you minute by minute through what actually happens in your brain during a Pomodoro cycle, from the neoepinephrine spike at minute 0 to the theta wave invasion around minute 20, and why your EEG will tell a completely different story than what you think you're actually experiencing. And then third, we're exposing the massive mistake most people make during their 5-minute breaks that completely sabotages the neurological recovery process, and why checking your phone during break time is like asking your exhausted marathon runner to sprint yet another mile. Okay, so let's dive in here. And once again, let's share something that's going to fundamentally change how you think about productivity. The Pomodoro technique isn't just a time management hack. No. It's a brain management hack, you might say. Or you might just say it's just brain management. And every productivity guru who tells you to just focus harder is ignoring 40 years of cognitive neuroscience research that proves your brain has predictable patterns of attention, fatigue, and recovery that you cannot override with just willpower alone. Okay, so let's imagine this here, if we can, for a moment. It's 2:30 p.m. on Tuesday. You're sitting at your desk with a project that has been haunting you for weeks. You've been, quote unquote, working on it for 2 hours, but if we're honest with each other, you've probably spent more time checking your emails, scrolling social media, or even reorganizing your desktop than actually making any progress. Your brain's feeling a little foggy. Your motivation is somewhere between 0 and maybe -10. Now, picture yourself reaching for a simple kitchen timer. Could be one of those round ones, could be one of those ones with the sand in it. Maybe even it's your phone. Maybe it's an old analog one from your kitchen drawer. You set it for 25 minutes. The moment you press start, something shifts, and you can actually feel it. Your posture straightens ever so slightly. Your breathing shifts. There's a subtle but real sense of urgency that wasn't there as little as 30 seconds ago. Imagine working for those 25 minutes, really working. No email, no notifications, no quick checks of anything, just you, the task, and that timer ticking in the background. And here's what's remarkable. When that timer finally dings, you'll look up genuinely surprised. Not because you were bored or waiting for it to end, but because you were so absorbed that time seemed to just compress and whiz by. Now imagine taking a real 5-minute break, not checking your phone, not answering emails, just maybe walking to the window, stretching, grabbing some water, whatever it is. And then you sit back down for the next 25-minute cycle. But this time, you're not starting from zero. You're resuming something your brain has already been quietly processing during that 5-minute break. The experience? Well, that's not willpower, my friends. That's neuroscience in action. And once you understand what's happening inside that amazing brain of yours during those 30 minutes, you'll realize why this simple technique has survived over 3 decades while countless other productivity systems have come and gone. First, let me go ahead and walk you through exactly what's happening inside your head during the complete Pomodoro cycle, right? Minute by minute. Minute 1, this is the goal-directed behavior activation. The moment you set that timer, before you've done a single second of actual work, your prefrontal cortex, that's the region right behind your forehead, is responsible for planning and sustained attention. It snaps to attention like a 20-year soldier. All right, you've just created what psychologists call goal-directed behavior. You've externalized an intention and told your brain, attention, attention, this is a task, this is the boundary, and there's the finish line, right? Your brain immediately begins releasing norepinephrine, which is essentially your neurochemical starting pistol. This isn't motivation. This is your brain's alertness system coming online. You can almost hear it like starting an engine. But here's the key. This happens because you invoked Parkinson's law, the observation that work expands to fill the time available. By giving yourself only 25 minutes, or actually giving yourself exactly 25 minutes, you've compressed the available time, forcing your brain into productive urgency rather than open-ended drifting to and fro like the seas. Now, minutes 1 through 10, this is your focus ramp and dopamine engagement time frame, okay? Your prefrontal cortex is now fully online, right? It's burning through glucose and oxygen at a rate that would probably shock you. Your brain is only 2% of your body weight, but during intense concentration, it can consume 20% of your total energy. The prefrontal cortex becomes the single most metabolically expensive structure in your entire body, even if you're a weightlifter. I'm just saying, okay? But here's what most people don't understand about dopamine. It's not just about reward. It's the neurochemical of motivation and goal pursuit. Your ventral tegmental area begins releasing dopamine into your nucleus accumbens and prefrontal cortex, creating this feedback loop. You're working toward a definite endpoint, and your brain can sense the finish line is right around the corner, right? Each minute of progress generates a small but real dopamine signal that says, keep going, you're almost there, right? Like a good coach would. This is where the Pomodoro Technique leverages intrinsic motivation. You're not working because someone is standing over your shoulder, right? Just keep going, you can do this, right? You're working because you made a commitment to yourself with that timer as a witness. Research consistently shows that intrinsic motivation produces deeper engagement and better cognitive outcome than external pressure does. I'm just telling you the facts right here. Now let's talk about minutes 10 through 20. This is the plateau and the invisible decline. Here, I guess you could say, here's to me is where it gets a little bit fascinating. Decades of research on sustained attention consistently finds that attention quality starts declining at about 15 and 30 minutes for most of your cognitive tasks.
Your Success DNA podcast. Your success is in your DNA.
Your prefrontal cortex is running low on its primary fuel, adenosine. This is the same molecule that makes you feel sleepy, and it's building up as a metabolic byproduct. On the EEG, you would start seeing what neuroscientists call the theta shift. Theta wave activity, which is the electrical signature of sharp focus, begins giving way to theta waves. And theta waves are slower, they're more diffused, and they're associated with your mind wandering, right? Like you're sitting in class and you're like, oh, look over there, okay? But here's the critical insight. This shift happens before you actually feel distracted. Your brain's electrical signature tells the story of declining attention several minutes before your conscious experience actually catches up and realizes it. There's also a synaptic fatigue starting to happen, okay? The neurons involved in your task are firing over and over and over and over again, and the synapses connecting them begin to lose their efficacy. Neurotransmitter vesicles deplete, receptor sensitivity starts to decrease. The circuit doesn't stop working. The circuit just gets noisier and it gets less precise. Imagine you're firing a water gun and all of a sudden the water spray starts to scatter around and it's still working. It's just not working as good as it was. This is exactly why these timed work intervals are so powerful, because they impose external structure on the cognitive decline that you cannot reliably detect from inside yourself even. This aligns perfectly with your brain's natural ultradian rhythms, those 90 to 120 minute cycles of alertness and fatigue that govern your attention throughout the day. That's what those are called, ultradian rhythms. So that brings us to minute 20 through 25. And this is the deadline effect. Something remarkable happens inside these final few minutes. Even as your prefrontal cortex experiences genuine metabolic strain, right? Oh God, I'm so tired. Your performance often holds steady or even it spikes a little bit. Why? Because the approaching deadline triggers another burst of neoepinephrine. Your brain knows that the end is near. It can see the finish line. If you've ever run some sort of long distance and you finally see the finish line, you get that burst of energy and it musters the resources for that final sprint, that straightaway. This is the same phenomena marathon runners experience in that last mile. The body is depleted, but the brain, seeing and sensing that finish line, releases a surge of neurochemical energy. The Pomodoro structure actually optimizes this natural attention rhythm. Okay, that brings us now to the 5-minute break. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is where the real magic actually happens. The moment you stop focus work, a completely different neural network activates, the default mode network, or DMN. This network, first identified by researcher Marcus Reichel, it's not your brain going quiet. It's your brain lighting up in a completely different pattern. The DMN is associated with self-referential thinking, future planning, and memory retrieval, and as well as internal narrative construction. You could call this the space where you will find your imagination, reflection, and even integration. Research shows that creativity doesn't happen during focus. It happens during the break, when your DMN can freely associate between the ideas that your focused attention kept separate. But here's where most of the people out there are going to sabotage themselves. They're going to spend their break checking their phone. This activates the same prefrontal attention circuits that you're actually trying to give a rest to. You're essentially asking your exhausted prefrontal cortex to do even more work during the window you really designed for it to sit and rest and recover. The most effective breaks involve what researchers call active rest, walking, stretching, just staring out the window, looking at the birds, looking at your dog, maybe pet your dog. How about that? These activities allow your prefrontal cortex to recover while the DMN does its integrative work. Okay? All right. So that brings us to the Zeigarnik effect and the cognitive tension. When you stop mid-task at the 25-minute mark, okay, maybe your task isn't done. Maybe it is done. But if you stop mid-task at the 25-minute mark, your brain holds that unfinished work in a state of, it's called cognitive tension. This phenomenon, discovered by psychologist Bluma Zeigarnik, creates a pull, a motivation to return. You're not starting from cold when the next Pomodoro cycle begins. You're resuming something that your brain has already been quietly processing during the break. At a molecular level, this cycle of focused work and rest mirrors activity-dependent plasticity in neural networks. The ventral tegmental area and the nucleus accumbens combine their dopamine dance even during the breaks. My tongue tripped over all those words right there. I hope you're following all those too. But basically, they're maintaining the motivational thread that you need. The Pomodoro structure doesn't just feel like it's effective, it's operating at the level of synaptic architecture, physically strengthening the neural circuits involved in what it is you're learning or what it is you're producing. It doesn't just feel effective, it actually is more effective. And if this deep dive into neuroscience of focusing is blowing your mind right now, and hopefully it's blowing your mind even as my tongue is tripping over some of these words I've practiced a few times. Sorry about this. You need to get on the Unleash Your Success DNA newsletter, because this is exactly the kind of science-backed contrarian insight that I share every week with inspiring entrepreneurs and 9-to-5 escapees and everyone out there who's just refused to accept surface level productivity advice. Each issue delivers more mindset shifts and more habit upgrades, again, with more doses of rebellious thinking to help you build not just a life, but maybe even a business aligned with your version of success. No fluff, no recycled tips, just truths about how your brain and everything else actually works and how to use that knowledge to your advantage. Okay, so let's back up for a moment here and ask the question, okay, so what, Tracy? Okay, so here's why this matters beyond just getting shit done. We're living in an attention economy where your ability to focus deeply is literally becoming your competitive advantage. So many things in our life are just yanking our focus away. So massaging and enabling that ability to focus is going to be your competitive advantage out there in everything in life, while everyone else is fragmenting their attention across notifications, across social media, and across constant task switching. Yeah, multitasking. I need to do a whole episode about that. Understanding this level of neuroscience of focus can give you a superpower, man. You can just feel the cape coming off of your shoulders right now. The bigger paradigm here is that most productivity advice treats your brain like a computer that should just work harder when you tell it to, right? Yeah, well, that's not what it is, because your brain is a biological system with predictable patterns of energy, attention, and recovery, just like your body. When you align your work habits with your neurobiology, instead of freaking fighting against it, you don't just get more productive, you get more creative, you get more innovative, and you get more capable of deep work that actually will move the needle towards the success you're looking for. This is about more than time management or creativity. I think it's more about cognitive sovereignty, right? You're taking control of your mental resources instead of just letting them be hijacked by a world designed, literally designed to fragment your attention. Your brain isn't broken when it can't focus for hours straight. No, please understand that. It's working exactly as it's designed to. The problem is not your willpower, it's your strategy. So here's your whispered wisdom for this episode. Tomorrow, try one scientifically informed Pomodoro cycle. Set a physical timer for 25 minutes. Choose one task. When that timer dings at the end of it, take a real 5-minute break. No phone, no email, just active rest. Pay attention to what you notice about your energy, about your focus, and about your motivation compared to your usual work pattern. You're not just testing a productivity technique here. No. You're conducting a neuroscience experiment on yourself. And the results, I'm willing to bet, will change how you think about your brain's capabilities. Listen, Francisco Cirillo didn't set out to reverse engineer the human brain when he grabbed a tomato-shaped timer back in the 1980s. He was just a frustrated college student trying to focus for 10 freaking minutes. But what he accidentally discovered was a method that aligns with how your prefrontal cortex metabolizes glucose, how your dopamine system responds to defined goals, and how your synapses physically consolidate learning through cycles of activation and recovery. The science is clear. Your brain has rhythms. And when you work within those rhythms instead of against them, everything changes. Not just your productivity, but your relationship with the work itself. You need to stop fighting your biology and start leveraging it. Your attention is your most valuable resource. It's time you start treating it like one. Think successfully and take action.
Thanks for listening to Your Success DNA podcast. Whether you're starting out or you're a seasoned entrepreneur, we have the tools and inspiration that you need to take your life to the next level. So stay tuned for more game-changing advice in our upcoming episodes. And hey, before you go, a quick reminder to check out our past episodes of Your Success DNA for more inspiring stories and practical advice. And if you've loved what you heard, leave us a review and share this podcast with your friends and colleagues. Let's all level up our lives together, shall we? Remember, your success is in your DNA.